Sige, let us start with our discussions this morning. Sige, may request Miss Flores, please, to lead us for our opening prayer this morning.
Yes, sir. Mag-start na, sir?
Yes, please.
Then we call in the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin. Do not trespass, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Okay, now, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. Morning,
Good
sir.
morning, sir.
Sir,
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so kung manotice ninyo no, wala pa ko naka-post o bago na assignments. Wala pa na ako na-post ang bago na batch of assignments for last week's supposed discussions. No? I will be posting them today. So expect that your new batch of assignments for our supposed discussion last week will be posted today sa Google Classroom. No? And also, I will be uploading the recorded discussions for last week's topics today, and I will be sending in the links sa tong group chat also today, no, when the upload is done, no. So it's so unfortunate last week no na medyo guba-guba gid ato ang mga connections sa internet, but nonetheless we will be expecting two recorded discussions na ma-upload today, no? So watch out for that. And of course, before we proceed with our discussions this morning, no, I would just like to remind again everyone of the pending assignments, no, for our midterm coverage. As of last week, as of today, medyo daghan-daghan pa ang wala nakahuman sa mga assignments. We still have an average of 25 students, I guess, combined for all blocks A, B, and C, ang wala pa nakakomply sa complete na mga assignments. So, I would like again to remind everyone na wala pa nakakomply para ma-include na ko inyong names sa submission ako of midterm grades because I'm not yet done computing midterm grades for your subject. No? So I will be waiting for the rest of you na makahuman today. Pero if dili pa mo makahuman today, again I will be giving a remark as lacking assignments or lacking requirements for those students nga dili pa makahuman o comply sa ilang mga assignments as of today, no? But that would not mean wala may midterm grade. Of course na ay midterm grade, but will be withheld until such time nga ma-comply ninyo tanan inyong mga requirements for this subject, no? So for a while. Okay, so again, good morning, everyone. Our discussions for this morning, no, will start on Article 1166. So this is on page 41 of my book and probably 43, page 43 of your version, no? So, daghan nag-message sa ako this morning na dili maka-attend sa ato ang Google Meet session this morning or today because of some concerns on internet connectivity. Well, again, that's fine, no? As long as mag-catch up sila sa mga recorded discussions and sa mga required na mga assignments and other requirements, no? Especially your study outline per group, no? And also, naaman tay consultation hours ng MWF 5 to 6 p.m. which is virtually every day. Every day man sad ka send in of questions ang mga students, no? But that's fine. As long as your questions are valid and are related sa ato ang mga discussions and sa atong subjects, mga requirements and all. No? So let us start with our discussions on Article 1161. No? So the previous topics that we have discussed, we discussed on real obligations, no? Personal real obligations and determinate real obligations, no? Generic and specific real obligations, no? So we have also discussed in partial fruits of the thing due, no? And kanos pwede himong demandable ang fruits together with the thing itself, no? Which are the objects or which is the object of the obligation, of course. Now, Article 1166 talks about accessions and accessories, no? Nalabyan nato ni ang accessions before when we discussed the obligations or gusto siya na specific topic. When we discussed the duties of a debtor, no, and obligations to give a determinate thing, no? So kato sila na mga obligations and duties included the preservation of the thing, of course, delivery of the thing itself, no, delivery of any fruits or accessories, and of course delivery of all accessions, no, and of course payment of any damages, no, in cases of non-compliance or partial compliance or negative compliance of the obligation in the contract, of course. Now, Article 1166 states that the obligation to give a determinate thing includes that of delivering all its accessions and accessories, even though they may have not been mentioned. No? So, of course, may different types of fruits. No, na ay katong mga. Let us first go back sa atong discussions before. We have, of course, natural fruits, no, which are spontaneous products of the soil. So walay actual na intention to cultivate these fruits, of course. We also have industrial fruits, no, which came out of the intention to cultivate the soil, and of course, civil fruits, no, derived out of juridical relations, no, or out of a specific convention between the debtor and the creditor, no. So dere, of course, no, since ang accessions and accessories are also, or the debtor is also obligated, no, to deliver the accessions, the accessories of the thing together with the thing, no. So diri lang sa article 1166 iyahang expressly state or gi-state gid niya in actuality, no, that the accessions and accessories are actually required, no, to be delivered by the debtor to the creditor even if wala sila gi-state expressly sa contract, no. So meaning ang rights ni creditor to demand the delivery of accessions, accessories, na which will include the fruits of the thing, dili siya required nga ma-state sa contract itself, ay siya mahimong demandable, no, by the creditor. So nevertheless, even if wala siya actually expressly mentioned sa contract, obligated sa debtor to deliver the accessories and accessions of the thing together with the thing, no. If moabot ng time nga pwede na i-demand ni creditor ang delivery of all these things, no. So mao lang na siya ang expressly stated sa article 1166, no. Pero before, or para mas masabtan nato kung unsa nga mga butang ang gi-state actually sa article 1166, no, let us first discuss the differences, or the main differences between accessions and accessories, no. Kay previously ang ato ang na-discuss kay ang fruits lang, no. So asa di ay belong ang fruits, are fruits accessions or are fruits accessories, no, or unsa pud ang differences between accessions and accessories, no. So sa atong book iyahang gihatagan og definition and differentiation ng accessories and accessions. Actually gihatagan pud niya og examples para mas masabtan nato ang differences between two, no. So the first one is on accessions, no. Accessions are the fruits of a thing or additions or improvements upon the thing, no. So dere when we discuss the term thing, no, mao na siya ang katong principal object, no, nga required to be delivered by the debtor to the creditor inside the contract, no. So mao na siya ang atong pasabot sa thing dere, no. So again, accessions will cover all fruits of the thing, no, which were added, no, or which were improved on the thing, no. So dere ang yang examples, no, houses or trees on a land, no. So a house built on a land, no, or trees growing out of the land, no, either natural fruits siya or industrial fruit, basta kay naa siya on top of the land, which is the object of the obligation. So kana sila are all considered accessions, no, or fruits of the thing, no. So aside pud ana sa atong gidiscuss pud nga civil example sa civil fruits last time, no, katong rent sa land nga giprenda, di ba, whether na ay knowledge sa actual nga tag-iya or wala, no. So the rental payments will be considered civil fruits, no. So civil fruits are also examples of accessions, no. So basically accessions will cover all types of fruits, be it natural fruits, industrial fruits, or civil fruits. All of these things will be included under accessions, no. So ultimately covered pud ang fruits, no, sa article 1166 aside sa ato ang gidiscuss last time nga article 1163, no. So article 1166 is the specific provision within the civil code with regards accessions, accessories, no, which will include fruits. So muna sila ang mga accessions, no. So kung malibog taon sa accessions and accessories, let us just remember that accessions will include all types of fruits. No, so accessions slash fruits. No, natural fruits, industrial fruits, civil fruits. All of these things will be covered under accessions. No, number two, accessories. Now, accessories are things joined to or included with the principal for its embellishment, better use, or completion. No, so meaning ang accessories by the term accessories, no, embellishment for decorations, no, for aesthetic purposes para mas nindot siya tan-awon ang thing, no, or better use para ma-improve ang paggamit ni sa tao, no, sa usa ka butang, no, and completion para mahimo siyang ma-consider siya as a complete product, no. So kung ato ang hatagan ng example, of course ang gibutang niya diri is, of course, ang pinaka example, ang pinaka concrete example ani is kani key of a house, no. So ang yabi sa usa ka balay is a necessary addition, no, to the thing. In this case, ang thing is the house, no. Ang yabe or ang key sa house is a necessary thing, no. Kay of course, without which dili magamit sa tao ang thing itself, which is the house, no. So the key is considered an accessory to the house, no. What else? Ang yang gihatag pa diri is a bow of a violin. Kana bitong ginahawiran para ma-play ang violin, no. Kana siya, no, although the violin is considered the violin lang itself, no, but without the bow, no, dili magamit properly ang violin, of course. That is why in that case, the violin, the bow is considered as the accessory or an accessory to the violin, no. So take note that both things, no, accessories and accessions, no, kani sila duha, no, are all required to be delivered together with the thing itself or the principal thing, no. Pero ang accessions, no, ganina ang fruits of the thing are not necessary to the principal thing, no. Kay kung ma-notice niyo ganina ang natural fruits, no, ang industrial fruits, ang civil fruits, no, will not affect, no, how a person will use the principal thing, no. Add-on lang siya, dili siya necessary, no. By necessary meaning kung ato silang tanggalon sa thing itself, dili ma-affect ang thing, no. Maggamit gapon siya as is bisan pag i-remove nato ang fruits, no, or ang accessions. Whereas ang accessories, no, katong key to the house, the bow of a violin, no, kani sila ang mga accessories are necessary additions to the thing itself, no, without which dili magamit per se ang thing or dili magamit properly ang thing itself, no. So kung ato ang i-differentiate ang necessity, no, between accessions and accessories with regards the principal thing itself, ang mga accessions pwede sila tanggalon, pwede sila walaon, can be dispensed with. Whereas ang mga accessories necessary sila na mga additions to or improvements on the thing itself. Without accessories, dili magamit per se ang thing or dili magamit properly. Okay, so that is the main difference between an accession and an accessory to the thing. Let us now discuss, no, the rights of a creditor to the accessions and accessories. Unsa ang mga katungod ni creditor, no? Kanus-an niya pwede ma-demand ang accessions and ang accessories, no? And unsa iyahang pwede buhaton in cases nga dili ma-deliver ni debtor together with the thing itself ang accessions and ang accessories, no? So the general rule is that all accessions and accessories are considered included in the obligation, no. Again, sa Article 1166 ganina, regardless if wala, no, expressly gibutang or wala gid actually gisulat sa kontrata or wala gid nila actually nasabutan, no, in the case of verbal contracts. Bisan pag wala na mention or gisulat sa contract, regardless, required gihapon sa debtor nga i-deliver ang accessions and ang accessories together with the thing ngadto kang creditor, no? So the general rule is that all accessions and accessories are considered included in the obligation to deliver a determinate thing, no? Although they may have not been mentioned. Again, bisan pag wala sila mention sa contract itself, required gihapon sa debtor nga i-deliver ang accessions and accessories ngadto kang creditor, no? So that is the most important thing, no, to be remembered when especially kung later on maka-meet ta og case problems, no, which will tackle accessions and accessories, no, kay ang naanda nato kay kung unsa lang ang naa sa contract, unsa ang terms and conditions nga nasa contract, unsa ang mga stipulations sa contract, mao lang na sila ang masunod, no? Kay sa atong discussions before, ang contract is the law, no, as far as the parties to the contracts are concerned, no? So kanistia is the exception to that general rule, no, because the accessions and accessories are all required to be delivered regardless if gimension sila or wala sa contract itself. Okay, so that's on Article 1166. Let us now go to Article 1167. No, if a person obliged to do something fails to do it, the same shall be executed at his cost. The same rule shall be observed if he does not, in contravention to the tenor of the obligation. Furthermore, it may be decreed that what has been poorly done can be undone. No, so kani sa Article 1167, we are now moving towards discussions on personal obligations, no? So kung ato ang balikan ng ato ang discussions on the difference between a real obligation and a personal obligations, no? Ang real obligations are obligations to give, no? While ang personal obligations are obligations to do or not to do. Okay? So in deciding, no, on matters regarding personal obligations, no, whether positive or negative personal obligations, ang ato ang basis is ang Article 1167, no? So that's on personal obligations. So let's discuss unsa ang mga matters, no, or ang mga topics na gi-discuss ni Civil Code under Article 1167, no, kay medyo technical and naay jargon ang gigamit diri sa Article 1167, no? So Article 1167 again refers to obligations to do or not to do, no? Ang Article 1167 talks about personal obligations, no? So naay tulo ka situations nga gidiscuss inside Article 1167, no? First, unsay mahitabo kung si debtor dili niya mabuhat ang obligations to do, no? So that's number 1. Number 2, if the debtor performs an obligation but contrary to the terms, no? Kay of course, again, as far as the parties to the contract is concerned, ang contract no man na ilang balaod, no man na ilahang law, no? Ang second scenario is that although nag-perform si debtor sa iyang obligation to do, pero wala niya gisunod ang conditions or stipulations nga naa sa ilahang contract. Number 3, the debtor performs an obligation to do but in a poor manner, no? So ang scenario number 1 ug 2 and 3, no, gibuhat niya iyang obligation to do, pero ang number 2 wala siya nisunod sa contract, and number 3 gi-perform niya iyang obligation but dili satisfactory, no, meaning dili within the quality expected from him or her, no, out of the contract. let us now expound on the first scenario, no? What if si debtor dili niya ma-perform iyang obligation to do under a contract, no? Again, be it a written contract or a verbal contract. Of course, in general, wala may required form ang contractual obligations, di ba, under the civil code. No? What are the remedies of the creditor, no, in a positive personal obligation? So, positive personal obligation pertains to obligations to do. No, kaya of course, later on, I-discuss po natin obligations not to do, which are negative personal obligations. So, right now, let us discuss positive personal obligations. No? So, unsay pwede buhaton or unsa nga mga actions ang pwede i-implement or buhaton ni creditor, no, in case nga si debtor dili niya ma-perform ang iyang positive personal obligations, no. So if the debtor fails to comply with this obligation to do, no, or a positive personal obligation, na ay duha ka general actions nga pwede buhaton si creditor. Number one, no, to have the obligation performed by the debtor, no, or by another person, no, at the debtor's expense. So duha ang first nga scenario, no. Pwede niya ipabuhat kang debtor, no, ang obligation to do. No, so in this scenario, si debtor wala niya na perform ang iyang obligation as expected by the contract, no. So ang first nga pwede buhaton ni creditor is to compel, no, iyang i-require si debtor to perform the obligation to do. Or if dili mabuhat ni debtor ang obligation to do, pwede niya ipabuhat sa usa ka tao called a third person, no. A third person is the person which is not in the contract. Of course, duha raman ang parties to the contract, the debtor and the creditor. So in this case, pwede i-require or pwede ipabuhat ni creditor ang obligation to do sa third person. But of course, ang expenses will be paid by the debtor, no. Ang third person or the creditor may only allow or may only compel a third person to do an obligation to do, no, if walay personal restrictions, no. Meaning, by personal restrictions, we mean required bagyod nga si debtor ang mabuhat because of requirements as to expertise, no. Meaning, kana ba siya nga obligation to do, kinahanglan bagyod nga si debtor lang ang magbuhat because siya lang ang kabalo, no. In that case, dili pwede maka-require si creditor nga nailain tao or third person nga mobuhat sa obligations ni debtor, no. But overall, if si debtor dili niya mabuhat ang obligation to do, no, and kinahanglan buhaton sa lain tao, ang mag-shoulder sa expenses should be the debtor. Okay, of course, siya man ang principal person nga obligated to do the obligation to do, no. So that is the first action nga pwede buhaton ni creditor in case nga dili mabuhat ni debtor ang iyang obligation. Number two, to recover damages, no. Of course, damages, na-discuss na ito ang damages before, di ba? So ang damages will always be one of the remedies of a creditor, no. Kung madumduman niyo sa ato ang mga discussions prior nga always naagyoy option si creditor, no, nga ang iyahan na lang i-require from the debtor is for him to pay damages, no. Kaya siguro si creditor siya na lang ang nagbuhat sa obligation, but of course the debtor will have to compensate the creditor in a way of payment of damages, no. So again, atong balikon unsa ang first nga pwede buhaton ni creditor in case nga dili ma-perform ni debtor yung obligation is to, number one, compel the debtor to do the obligation or to perform the obligation to do, or have a third person, no, perform the obligation to do, but of course ang magbayad sa expense is si debtor. Or kung dili na lang ipa-perform ni creditor ang obligation to do, have the debtor pay him equal damages, of course. Number 2, no? In cases nga yes, nag-perform sa debtor sa iyang obligation to do, pero wala niya nasunod ang contract, no? Or number 2, dili within the quality expected from the contract, no? In that case, unsay pwede buhaton ni creditor, unsa iyang mga remedies, unsa iyang mga um, actions nga pwede niya consider. In that case, pwede niya ipa-undo. Unsay pasabot sa undo, control Z, 'di ba sa computer, undo. Pwede niya ipa-undo, ipa-unperform, no? So ang atong mga cite ani nga example is if there is a contract between two persons to repair a house, of course, no? So in that contract, of course, kinahanglan mag-set ang creditor, no? Or ang nagpa-repair sa balay kung unsa nga quality of repair ang iyang expect out of the contract, no? On the other hand, of course, ang mag-perform sa repair, mag-bill pud siya og amount, no, proper amount based sa unsa ang specific nga repair nga gikinahanglan sa iya sa balay, no? In the case nga ang construction or ang repair dili within the quality nga gi-expect sa owner sa balay, no? Pwede niya ipa-undo, ipatanggal tanan mga repairs, but of course on the expense of the debtor or the other party. So kana siya, no, although medyo ridiculous siya paminawon, pero usa na siya actually sa remedies or sa actions nga pwede buhaton ni creditor, no, in case nga trabaho dili sakto. Kay of course na may contract, no, pero in practice, of course, kani siya na remedy will only have to be pwede ra ni siya ma-avail ni creditor if naa siya actual nga documentation as to the contract, no? Kay of course kung iyaha lang basis, no, is a verbal agreement or a verbal contract, of course dili man ma-admit sa court ang verbal nga proof in that case. Kay of course evidence-based man ang legal system nato. Okay, let us first take a break, no, 5 minutes na break, and then when we come back, let us discuss the instances, no, if in case nga si creditor mo tap siya og third person to perform the obligation to do. Okay, so let us now continue with our discussions now. Okay. Ako alang kining i-reiterate balik nung under personal obligations. Kaya of course, 'di ba? Naaman tay sa atong definition sa obligations na may obligation to give, na ay obligation to do, and of course na obligation not to do, no? So sa positive sa personal obligations, which are obligations to perform something, no, we have two general classifications, no, obligations to do and not to do, no. So in the legal parlance, ang obligations to do are termed as positive personal obligation, no, obligations to do, whereas ang obligations not to do, again sa personal parlance or sa personal sa legal terms, no, are termed negative personal obligations, no, obligations not to do. So positive ang to do, negative ang not to do, no. So positive personal obligations and negative personal obligations, no. So let us now discuss the instances, no, kung kanus pwede i-require ni creditor nga third person na lang ang mag-perform sa obligations, no. This is of course in the case where si debtor wala niya gi-perform or wala niya na-perform ang iyahang obligation to do, no. Kaysa ganina sa Article 1166, no, Article 1167, of course, no, gi-discuss ang remedy ni creditor, no, nga instead nga si debtor ang iyang i-compel or i-require nga i-perform ang obligation to do, pwede na lang niya ipabuhat sa usa ka third person, no, someone who is not a party to the contract, no. So a personal obligation to do, no, can be performed by a third person, of course atong gi-discuss ganina, no. While the debtor can be compelled to make the delivery of a specific thing, a specific performance cannot be ordered in a personal obligation, no. So although si debtor is the principal person to the obligation to do, no, meaning siya gyud dapat siya ang naay responsibility, siya ang naay duty to perform, no, a positive personal obligation. Although mo na siya ang case, no, mo na siya ang scenario, pero dili definite ang rights ni creditor nga i-require niya sa debtor, meaning not at all times, no, pwede ma-demand ni creditor nga or debtor kani i-perform na ni siya ang obligation to do, no. Dili na siya definite right ni creditor nga naman. That will be tantamount to involuntary servitude. I guess na discuss na nato ning involuntary servitude before, no, under quasi contracts, of course, no. So again, in the case nga dili i-perform or dili ma-perform ni debtor ang obligation to do or a positive personal obligation, dili ma-require ni creditor si debtor nga siya lang dapat ang mag-perform sa obligation, because that will be equivalent to involuntary servitude. So in that case, again, pwedeng third person na lang or a third party na lang ang i-require ni creditor to perform the obligation, of course, no. So under our constitution, again, involuntary servitude is prohibited, meaning dili siya allowed nga practice, no. Dili na to pwede ma-compel ang usa ka tao to perform in our favor, no, especially if walay due compensation, dili siya bayaran, no. So even though of course na ay compensation, pero dili willing ang other person to perform something, no, so dili na siya allowed, because that will be tantamount to involuntary servitude, which is of course prohibited our constitution, no. However, no, kung ang personal obligation or the personal qualifications of the debtor are the determining motive for the obligation contracted, of course, sa akong gingon ganina, no, nga although na ay option or na ay right si creditor nga mopili og third person to perform an obligation for the debtor, no, pero again, if na ay personal qualification, no, if naay specific nga expertise nga required para ma-perform ang obligation nga si debtor lang ang naa, no? So in that case, impossible man nga mangita og third person to perform the obligation for the debtor kay since si debtor lang man ang naay personal qualification required to perform the obligation. So in that case, dili possible or dili pwede ma-exercise ni creditor ang iyang remedy to require a third person to perform the obligation for the debtor, no? Again, in simple terms, kung naay specific qualification or expertise nga si debtor lang ang naa, no, which is a requirement, no, or a necessary qualification para ma-perform ang obligation. So in that case, dili pwede maka-require si creditor to have a third person perform the obligation for the debtor. No, so in that case, si debtor lang gyud dapat ang mag-perform sa obligation, of course. Let us now go to our discussion on Article 1168. So, si Article 1167 ganina, of course, ang iyang discussions revolved around positive personal obligations, no, or obligations to do, no? So, diri, si Article 1168, on the other hand, talks about obligations not to do, no, or negative personal obligations, no? So, diri, sa obligations not to do, no, naay specific nga actions, no, nga dili pwede buhaton ni debtor para ma-fulfill niya ang contract, no? Whereas in comparison ganina sa obligations to do or sa positive personal obligations, naay thing or naay action na kinahanglan i-perform si debtor para ma-fulfill niya ang obligations, no? So when the obligation consists in not doing, no, and the obligor does what has been forbidden him, it shall be done at the expense of the debtor, of course. So diri sa scenario karon sa Article 1168, no, under the contract na ay usa ka action, no, or na ay usa ka performance nga dili dapat buhaton ni debtor, no? So in that case nga gibuhat na ni debtor ang butang nga ginadili sa iya under the contract, no, kana siya should also be undone, dapat i-undo gihapon na ni debtor, but of course ang mag-shoulder sa any expenses nga mahitabo si debtor himself, no? So let us take an example, no? So let us say person A, no, gipalit ni person A ang property ni person B, let's say land, no? Person A bought a land from person B, no? It was stipulated that S or person B would not construct a fence on a certain portion of his land adjoining that sold to B, no? So let us say for example na usa ka luag na strip of land si person B and portion ana is sold to person A, no? Pero under the contract nila of contract to sell, no, dili dapat buhatan o labat or dili kuralan ni person B kana siya nga portion sa yuta para ma-access ni person A ang iyahang napalit nga land, no? So ang obligation not to do in this case is not to construct a fence, no, on the property sold by B to A, no? So mana siya ang negative personal obligation under the contract. So mana siya ang action, no, nga gibawalan si person B nga buhaton, no, in relation sa contract niya with person A. So in cases no nga dili na sundo ni person B nga stipulations ilang contract, meaning Instead nga dili niya buhatan og fence, no, kana siya nga portion sa land gibuhatan niya og fence, no. So ang kanang action ni B, ang pagbuhat sa fence, no, is considered not performing the obligation. Kaya again, ang iyang obligation is to not construct a fence, no. So ang negative personal obligation ni B kang A is to not construct a fence on the property sold by B to A. No? So unsa may pwede buhaton ni A? No? In the case nga gibuhat ni B ang butang nga dili dapat niya buhatan under a contract, no? So in that case, pwede ma-compel or ma-require ni A si B, no, nga tanggalon ang iyahang gi-construct nga whatever dito sa property nga iyahang napalit. But of course, mag-shoulder sa any expenses, no? For example, na ay mga tao nga kinahanglan maoy mo buhat sa pagtanggal sa fence, no? Ang mag-shoulder ana nga expense is of course ang kadtong person nga wala ni sunod sa ilahang contract, which is person B. So that's on Article 1168. Let us now go to our discussions on Article 1169. So, Article 1169 actually discusses delay, no? So, ang delay both has a legal definition, no, and a general definition, no. So naatay mga naandan nga meaning sa term nga delay, pero kana siya nga definition or kana siya nga meaning is just similar sa iyahang meaning in context of law, no. So those obliged, no, under Article 1169, those obliged to deliver or to do something incurs a delay from the time the obligation judicially demands, no. So na ay mga pwede mag-compel ang creditor, no, from the time nga required na nga mag-deliver ang usa ka tao, no, pero na-delay siya, meaning wala niya na sunod ang time limitation, no, kung kano saan niya dapat i-deliver ang thing or i-perform ang obligation to do, no. So let us discuss the meaning of delay, no, as used in the legal system, no. So the word delay as used in the law is not to be understood according to its meaning in common parlance, no. A distinction therefore should be made between ordinary delay and legal delay. So naay duha ka types of delay. So ordinary delay and legal delay, no. So ordinary delay, ang definition sa delay nga naandan nato usually, no, and legal delay meaning yun sa paggamit sa legal system ang term nga delay, no. So ordinary delay is merely the failure to perform an obligation on time, no, meaning wala nimo na meet ang deadline, for example sa imong assignment, no. So that's tantamount or equivalent to ordinary delay, no. But legal delay, no, or naay siya lain term also used, which is ang term nga default, no. Legal delay or default is the failure to perform an obligation on time, no, which failure constitutes a breach of the obligation, no. So ang legal delay na siya duha ka elements, no. First, no, wala nimo nabuhat ang obligation on time, no. So mo na siya ang ordinary delay nga portion sa legal delay, no. Pero as a consequence tungod kay wala nimo nabuhat ang imong obligation on time, naa kay wala nasunod nga portion sa inyong contract, no. Kay of course ang time element meaning kano saan nimo dapat i-perform ang imong obligation or i-deliver ang imong obligation, no, kana siya nga element will also be documented inside the contract, no. So wala nimo na perform or na deliver ang imong obligation on time, and of course, na kay wala na sunod nga stipulation or terms sa inyong contract. So, naatay kinds of delay under the law, no? So, saan siya? Heads up lang or warning. Kani sila na mga terms are Latin terms, no? So, medyo libog kung atong dumdumon ilahang mga spellings, no? So, i-take note gid ninyo always, no? So, kana sila regardless naman na sila sa atong libro. So, kabalo ta sa spelling. No? So, there are 3 general kinds of delay. No? Number 1 is mora solvende. Number 2, mora accipiende. And number 3, compensatio morae. No? Let's discuss number 1, mora solvendi. No? The delay on the part of the debtor to fulfill his obligation. No? So, mo ni siya ang usual nga delay nga to ang na discuss, no? Which is on the part of the debtor. Meaning, sa mora solvendi, ang delay is on the part of the debtor. Meaning, delay sa pag-deliver sa obligation or delay sa pag-perform sa obligation. No? Generally, mora solvendi equals delay on the part of the debtor. Second type of delay, mora accipiendi. No? Delay on the part of the creditor to accept the performance. No? Meaning, ang obligation, ang performance sa obligation, no, or ang delivery sa obligation, dili lang siya one-sided. Meaning, dili lang si debtor ang naay obligation, no? Of course, ang obligation per se under the contract is on the part of the debtor kasi man ang na duty to perform. Pero on the other hand, sa part ni creditor, napo dyan obligation to accept the delivery, no, or to accept the performance of the obligation. So, mora accipiendi is delay on the part of the creditor to accept the performance of the obligation, no? So, dili lang di ay enough nga i-perform or i-deliver ni debtor ang iyang obligation, no? But kinahanglan po i-accept ni creditor ang pag-perform sa obligation, no? So, mora solvendi, delay on the part of the debtor. Mora accipiendi, delay on the part of the creditor. So, number 3, compensatio morae. No? Sa compensatio morae, na ay delay both ways. No? So, kani siya is a unique kind of delay. No? Kay under one contract, si debtor is also a creditor. Meaning, ang duha ka tao, naa sila'y contract to, for example, to give or to deliver a thing, no? Si person A and person B. Si person A na ay obligation to deliver a specific thing kang person B, no? At the same time, sa person B na po siya obligation to deliver a specific thing kang person A, no? So silang duha are both debtors and creditors at the same time under one contract, no? So that's on compensatio morae. So how do we determine nga na ay delay called compensatio morae, no? So in that case, no, if si person A and si person B, sila duha dungan nakabuhat og delay, no? Meaning sila duha wala nila na perform or na deliver ilahang obligations on time, no? So in that case, if sila duha ang na delay under one contract, no, that is considered a compensatio morae, no? Pero unlike sa mora solvendi and sa mora accipiendi nga na ay tao nga pwede kaning say tawag ani sa Bisaya manlimot man kung Bisaya. Na ay tao nga pwede magreklamo no nga uy nag-delay man ka sa pag-perform sa imong obligation, no? Or na-delay man ka sa pag-accept sa ako ang gi-perform ng obligation. So in this case, sa compensatio morae, since sila duha ang naka-incur og delay, sila duha ang nag-delay sa pag-perform sa ilang obligations, walay isa sa ilaha nga pwede makareklamo, no, to get damages out of the delay. No, kay sila man duha both ways. Sila man duha ang naka perform or sila duha ang nakabuhat og delay. Sila duha ang naka-incur og delay sa kompensasyon. Okay? So again, mora solvendi, delay on the part of the debtor. So na delay og perform or na delay og deliver ni debtor ang iyang obligation. Number 2, mora accipiende is delay on the part of the creditor. No, so unsa ang na-delay ni creditor? Ang pag-accept sa pag-perform sa obligation. And of course, compensation more if both ways silang duha are both debtors and creditors under the same contract and silang duha nagdungan og incur og delay. So those are types of delay or default. No? Remember on our initial discussions no on the definition of the term obligations, no? Again, obligation to give, to do, or not to do. No? So kaning mga delays, kaning mora accipiende, mora solvendi, and compensation more, delays may only be considered under obligations to give and obligations to do. Diba? So makonsider lang ang ang delays under obligations to give and obligations to do. So unsa di ang mahitabo sir sa obligations not to do, 'di ba? So sa obligations not to do or sa negative personal obligations, 'di ba, since ang obligation nimo is not to do a specific action or not to perform this specific action, no? So wala may deadlines kung kanus-ani mo dili dapat buhaton ang butang, no? As long as dili nimo na siya buhaton under the contract, you are considered to have fulfilled the obligation, no? So there is no delay or walay delay nga consider under a negative personal obligations, no? So again, ang delay may only be considered under real obligations or obligations to give, and of course positive personal obligations or obligations to do, no? Again, ako lang balikon, no delay or walay delay nga considered under negative personal obligations or obligations not to do. Okay? Okay, so let us now discuss the requisites, no? Balik na po tawag term nga requisites, no? What do we mean by requisites again? Requirements, no, or elements, no? So let us first discuss the requisites to mora solvendi. No, again, unsa kining mora solvendi? Mora solvendi is delay on the part of the debtor in performing his obligations, no? So meaning, kanus-an na to matawag or makonsider as delayed na ang pag-perform sa obligation ni debtor. So na ay 3 requisites after which makonsider na nato as delayed ang performance ni debtor sa iyang obligation or naka-commit na siya og mora solvendi, no, or delay on the part of the debtor. Number 1, failure of the debtor to perform his obligations on the date agreed upon, no? So meaning kung naay suspensive period, no? Sa atong discussions before, naay suspensive period or suspensive condition ang usa ka obligation and niabot na siya nga period or condition and wala pa na perform ni debtor iyang obligation, no? So that is the first requisite to mora solvendi, no? By default, ang suspensive condition or ang suspensive period, mao na siya ang default na basis kung ano sana to ma-considered as delayed na ang pag-perform sa obligation. Pero dili na siya enough na requisite because napatay second and third requisites. Number 2, no? Demand made by the creditor, no? So although nilapas or niabot na or nilapas na ang suspensive condition or suspensive period and wala pa na perform ni debtor iyang obligation, dili pa siya directly or dili pa siya diretso considered as in delay, no? So meaning kinahanglan sa magbuhat og demand si creditor, meaning gi-require na ni creditor nga i-perform ni debtor ang iyang obligation. No, so that's second requisite. And of course, third requisite, despite the demand made by the creditor or despite sa pahinumdum nga gibuhat ni creditor kang debtor para i-perform niya iyang obligation, wala gihapon nag-perform si debtor, no? So after the third requisite, then dinha na magsugod ang counting of the days sa delay ni debtor. Again, niabot na ang date agreed upon or ang suspensive condition or suspensive period. Number 2, naghatag na og demand si creditor kang debtor to perform the obligation. And of course, third requisite, despite the demand or despite the reminder nga gihatag ni creditor kang debtor to perform the obligation, wala gihapon gi-comply ni debtor ang iyang obligation under their contract. No? Again, balikan nato always nga generally walay required form ang obligations, no? An obligation may be a written obligation, a written contract, or an obligation may be documented by a written contract, or pwede pod nga verbal lang ang agreement or verbal lang ang contract. So those are the requisites of delay, meaning kanus-an nato ma-considered as delay na ang pag-perform ni debtor sa iyang obligation. No, again, dili enough nga niabot na ang deadline, no, or dili enough nga niabot na ang suspensive condition or suspensive period, no. By default, dili na siya always ang basis para ma-consider nato as delay na ang performance ni debtor sa iyang obligation. Again, number 2 nga requisite, dapat nag-demand na si creditor, and of course, number 3 nga requisite, wala gihapon gi-comply ni debtor ang iyang obligation despite the reminder or the demand from the creditor. So we will end our discussions today here sa kinds of delay and of course the requisites of delay under mora solvendi, no? So expect na maghatag ko og links sa ato ang group chat today sa tulo ka recorded discussions, no? Before we dismiss this morning, balikan lang nako ang mga assignments nga ako ang gipanghatag so far for the midterm, para sa midterm grade, no? Week 1 assessment and activity and week 2 assessment and activity. Muna sila so far, no? And daghan pa, napay average of 25 to 30 students ang wala pa nakakomply sa mga assignments, no? Of course, combined na siya for all blocks A, B, and C. And right after we dismiss this morning, mag-post ko sa atong group chat og pangalan sa mga students nga wala gihapon nako nakita ang responses para sa midterm exam. Okay, of course, the midterm exam is a must, no, para ma-compute na ako inyong grades. Okay, so do you have concerns or questions so far? Questions? So before we dismiss, no, I would just like again to remind all group leaders, no, of your requirement to submit weekly study outlines, no? So later on top of the submission of all study outlines, no, I will also be requiring the leaders to rate the kaning performance or the contributions made by their members. Of course, that will be considered as one component of your grade for the final period. Kay naay uban leaders nga nagreklamo nga sir dili man ni siya ga tabang, dili siya ga contribute og anything to para sa submission sa inyong study outline. No, again na kabalo naman siguro mo nakita naman ninyo ang effect sa study outline during our midterm period, no? Nga it is a must because kung balikan ninyo ang libro to study for major exams, baga kay na siya. Again, that is the reason why I required all students, no, all classes to submit study outlines. No? So, do you have questions so far? Naabot yung mga pangutana? Wala na? Okay, so again, if you have questions right after we dismiss this morning, you may address your questions sa atong group chat, of course, or you may message me personally sa akong messenger, or you may text me because you have my personal number na. Diba? Again, expect assignments to be posted today regarding our discussions last meeting, and of course, 3 links para sa recorded discussions nga wala pa na-upload so far. Okay? Do you have questions? I would like to request everyone, no, since napa may mabilin nga time this morning para sa atong subject, I would like to request everyone, especially kadtong mga wala pa naka-comply sa mga assignments sa Google Classroom, please comply with your assignments. No? Again, unless otherwise dili pa mo okay pa sa inyo nga wala sa mo midterm grade, of course. Okay? So, if you have no more questions for this morning's discussions, you are dismissed and see you on Friday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.